fairly new to this issue. So look, I want to go back a bit. What I'm interested in knowing is, when was the first thought of relocation of the APVMA relocating to a regional centre? So not Armidale, but specifically the idea that maybe we could move them from Canberra to somewhere else. When did that was first an issue?
Okay, you're testing my memory about the exact date, because I haven't got it in front of me, but I think from memory it was about April 2014, or certainly first half of 2014.
Okay, so we had a new government September 2013, so then 6 months later, April 2014, the idea was floated that APVMA may be able to move.
Just for a little further background,
Excuse me.
just for a little bit more background information for you, part of the agricultural white paper process into agriculture identified 3 RDCs in the APVMA as through that consultation process for potential regional relocation. So that was the process that led up to the April 2014 decision to make a public statement that was the desire of the coalition government for these agencies to be relocated to regional areas.
Okay.
It was just floating.
It was an idea that was floated at that stage. So was the first consultation that was done on that the consultation that was referred to previously as being the consultation in 2015, or was there some broader consultation across the sector, after that idea was floated in April 2014?
I'd have to turn to the department in terms of broader consultation, but I did consultation in 2015. That was after the Minister wrote to me asking for advice, purely advice, about the willingness of the APVMA to move to either Armidale or Toowoomba. So I wrote to the stakeholders that were mentioned, and that's the consultation I was talking about. And it was on a fairly narrow question, but I'm not sure whether there was other consultation done outside of that.
Yeah, and Senator Rice, as I was saying, as part of the green paper that led to the white paper, there was also a very broad consultation process that led to this decision. So the consultation has sort of been broad and has narrowed down as time's gone by.
So that green paper, that consultation that was undertaken then, did that identify Toowoomba and Armidale as being the two potential locations? Or were there a broader range of regional locations that might have been considered?
I believe, and I'll stand to be corrected and taken on notice if I'm incorrect, my understanding was that I identified the 3 RDCs and the APVMA for potential relocation to regional areas, and decisions on those locations was something that was the subject of further discussion and consultation, but I'm happy to correct myself if that's
okay, if you could
right.
Get back to me as to how, that level of consultation, and in particular, so how was, at that stage, Toowoomba and Armidale selected as the 2 potential areas for the relocation?
Certainly happy to take that on notice. I'm not sure.
No.
Yeah, we'll have to take that on notice.
So was there a process at any stage of other regional areas being able to, put forward a proposal as to why they might be a suitable location for APVMA?
Well, certainly, I can't answer it directly in relation to APVMA, but I was involved more closely with the Fisheries Research and Development Corporation's relocation or new office in Adelaide, and that came about as a direct result of consultation with the broader fishing industry as to where they thought that the greatest benefit of their location or that their additional office would be. So
you don't know, though, whether there was a similar process, or was there definitely not a similar process, across the whole of the country where it could be relocated to?
Senator, we'll have to take that on notice, but as the Senator Ruston has said, there was the focus for the APVMA on Armidale and Toowoomba, and I think at that time there was probably some consultation with, there are 2 universities who are close to Toowoomba, one in Toowoomba and the other one, University of Queensland at Gatton, not far away. But there was, I believe, an opportunity during that process for people to suggest other locations, somewhat similar to the way the FRDC came forward with an Adelaide out of the mix, but we'd have to take the detail of that on notice.
So, sorry, you believe there was an opportunity, but you...
Well, people were talking about these other, the locations of Armidale and Toowoomba. As people were speaking, there's nothing to stop people saying, we think there's another good rural university at Wagga, or there's a good
But
another
I'm
location.
confused because I thought the consultation was specifically about Toowoomba or Armidale, that consultation in 2015.
That's what the consultation was about. But people, there was consultation about moving RDCs to places too, but some of the commentators said, oh, we think a better place is A or B. They just put it into the mix.
That's not a fair, objective consultation if you're leading the consultation with two particular areas and not talking about any of the others.
Senator, I think we're just going to take this part of the history on notice. It's certainly true that I think as soon as the Minister and the government started talking about decentralisation, there were proposals from various council areas and cities and universities and so on for various relocation of the R&D corporations and the APVMA. But as to this particular part of the history, we'll take it on notice and give you the story.
All right. So in terms of Armidale being selected, so what are the particular benefits as to why Armidale as opposed to any other potential regional area?
Well, as to why Armidale and Tamworth were the two that were in the frame at this stage, that's just the question that we...
Tamworth or Toowoomba?
Toowoomba, sorry. We've agreed to find that detail. Armidale was being discussed before the election, and then the Minister made the election commitment, as you know.
Yes, okay. But what are the particular attributes of why Armidale as opposed to anywhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I think in the election commitment, the minister talked about the particularly the University of New England's history, which we've traversed a little earlier. Its strong linkages across agriculture, other existing institutions that are there already, as well as sort of the broader regional economic opportunities.
Are there other regional universities that have a similar connection to their agricultural expertise?
Well, there are there are other universities that have agricultural linkages and expertise, but that's correct.
So can you name some of them?
Not off the top of my head.
There's University of Southern Queensland, Toowoomba, Charles Sturt,
University.
La Trobe University in Melbourne has rural campuses, and there's probably University of Queensland at Gatton.
So there's a whole range of universities where you could make a case you'd have the similar agricultural expertise.
There's a number of universities.
As UNE has at Armidale.
And UNE also had the, as Mr Williamson said, the number of agricultural institutions that are there, plus the National Broadband Network.
Okay, but yes, the National Broadband Network, I know it's not as widespread as it needs to be, but it's still, due to policies that, probably are. Yes, okay. So, Ms Arthey, do you see any particular benefits for APVMA of being in Armidale? It suits APVMA as to why Armidale is particularly a good place to be?
So it's a government policy decision. So really that's a matter for government
But as the CEO of APVMA, and you know what your organisation does.
Yes. It is an opinion, and it's not an opinion that I can provide.
Okay, all right. I don't see it as being an opinion, because I would think if you were looking at moving, there probably are some benefits for the organisation. Will also be some disadvantages.
But you're placing the witness in a position where they're forced to give you an opinion, and it's government policy.
Yes.
Okay. Does the relationship with the university and the connection with the agricultural expertise of a university, is that of particular value to APVMA?
As I mentioned earlier, we've actually been working with the UNE for about 18 months now, looking at getting curriculum into their programs around how to be a regulatory scientist, and that will be quite of huge advantage to us and other regulators in the future. Any linkages in with the agriculture expertise is good, because it means that we can go and talk to people about the latest technology, the latest research that might be happening in particular areas, latest animal husbandry practices. So that's quite positive.
Right. But you haven't had that. Basically, it's been trying to get expertise for regulatory scientists at the moment with the UNE. You haven't had other broader relationships or interrelationships with them
No,
up
no,
until now.
no.
Being based in Canberra, what's your relationship been like with ANU? Have you done work with them?
We probably have, but I couldn't be. I'd have to take that on notice in terms of what scientific work. We do more work with CSIRO,
Right.
because they've got more science that's relevant to us.
And the CSIRO, where is their expertise relevant to you? Where is that based?
That I do not know. I shall just check. Just got advice that some of the expertise is here in Canberra,
Right.
but we deal with such a wide variety of issues that we tend to work with agencies across Australia.
Had CSIRO and the ANU been consulted about the shift of APVMA?
Senator, I believe CSIRO has been consulted. I'm unaware whether ANU has been consulted.
Could you take that on? Well, we've got on notice all of the people who have been consulted over the time. Because I'm interested, there was a report earlier this year, a number of reports about the development of the National Agriculture Environmental Sciences Precinct in Canberra, which are the joint initiatives of CSIRO and the adjoining Australian National University, where Dr John Manners, the Director of CSIRO Agriculture, has stated that the CSIRO and ANU Agricultural and Environmental Partnership would have a lasting impact on Australian agriculture in the region, and that this, the Black Mountain Project, is an investment in meeting the challenges of an evolving future. He notes that because scientific breakthroughs were usually the result of multidisciplinary approaches, the research would be wide-ranging. We'll be bringing in environmental scientists, agricultural scientists, together with people now working with informatics and data science. The co-location of one of Australia's top universities with the facilities of the CSIRO creates one of the largest concentrations of agricultural and environmental science in Australia. We're jointly funding positions. The importance of the precinct, not just to the ACT and farmers, but also the Australian economy and the broader region, cannot be overstated.
I don't think ANU's got a faculty of agriculture, has it?
Well, it sounds like that they're leading the country in this joint facility that's being established in Canberra. So has the fact that APVMA is going to be leaving Canberra as this is being established, has that been a factor in the consideration of the relocation?
Senator, as Ms Arthey says, the APVMA hasn't had a lot of direct or recent interaction with ANU. We're familiar with the CSIRO ANU linkage in terms of agricultural systems. I think it's about future farming systems, and I think from that media release I believe you're quoting from, it was focusing on the sort of informatics, data management, remote sensing type skills that CSIRO and ANU have here in Canberra.
Yes, so, but my question is whether the fact that this centre of excellence is being established in Canberra to bring together ANU and CSIRO's agricultural science expertise, whether the fact that APVMA is now going to be leaving Canberra, whether that has been a factor that was considered and obviously discounted as not being significant, or was it not considered?
If I might answer, Senator, Martin Walsh again. The scope of the study, which as we've discussed is part of the Cabinet process, included how the move might affect the APVMA's relationships and work with its key stakeholders and clients, including chemical companies, academic institutions and producers who use agricultural and veterinary chemicals, and what actions can be undertaken to mitigate any concerns.
Okay, that's in the scope of the study.
That's correct.
Yeah, we don't know how that analysis has, what the results of that analysis are, though.
They're not public.
No. Okay. In terms of the main stakeholders that you do deal with, so it's the chemicals, the chemical producers, the users of those chemicals, or the peak bodies that oversee the use of those chemicals. Where are most of those organisations based?
Most of the chemical manufacturers are either in North Sydney or sort of Melbourne, Geelong area. And in terms of the peak agricultural bodies, they're all over the place. We work with quite a few people, whether in Sydney, Narrabri, Canberra. Where we tend to deal with them wherever they are.
Right. And do you have regular meetings with Canberra bureaucrats and ministers and minister staff?
Well, I certainly meet with the department. We would meet weekly on several issues. We also work very closely with our regulatory partners, so our counterparts like the TGA and the Industrial Chemical Regulator and Food Standards. We do work fairly closely with them as well.
So how many face-to-face meetings in Canberra do the staff currently have?
Oh gosh, I'd have to take that one on notice to give you if you want an exact figure, but I'd say we would have meetings nearly daily on a few of these things.
So how many staff would have meetings daily in Canberra?
Oh, look, I don't know. I'd be plucking a number out of the air. I'd have to take that on notice if you want something more accurate.
Yes,
but certainly at the senior levels, I would meet with the department like once every week or two. People below me would meet with other agencies. That's every couple of days.
And is the expectation that if the relocation goes ahead, that how many of those meetings would you expect would continue to involve travel to Canberra, and how many would be undertaken remotely?
That's really a hypothetical that I can't really get into at the moment until I get the order from government following the cabinet process.
Has this been included in the scope of the cost-benefit analysis?
I don't want to sort of diminish the significance of this, but we have staff all over the world that we interact daily with in quite an effective way, and have the sort of normal rich communication and the technical capacity to communicate with locations like Armidale is equivalent to those in the kind of cities that offshore that where we have staff. So I don't think that particular issue is going to be a problem.
So you expect then that most of these meetings would be undertaken remotely?
I think that will be readily achievable, and is increasingly the norm anyway. Even for people located in the same city to communicate in this way. That's how we're doing business, and we're doing business with our own staff in foreign cities. So I'm not trying to diminish the significance of it, but at a practical level, I don't think it. I think it's not a huge issue.
Do you agree with that, Ms. Arthur? Is it a practical?
Well, we do have one staff member in Perth who we work with remotely, and we do interact all over the world. So quite a few of us chair OECD committees or work on OECD committees. So we're always on video conferences and web conferences. So in theory, I can't see why the same technology can't be applied in other forums. It's convenient when people are in the same spot to meet.
Yes, and would you agree that you can meet remotely, yes, but it's, if you are located physically in the same place, you get a higher quality of interaction. And I know, our modern technology is allowing us to meet remotely, but when you've got a face-to-face meeting, it actually enables you to resolve things more efficiently in many cases.
Yeah. I think with respect, that's probably down to the people who are involved in the meetings. As I said, most of us are involved in OECD meetings where we get great outcomes remotely. It's something that's part of certainly our modern work life.
Yeah, I'm not sure our children would necessarily agree with that, although I personally would. But
although there is the very strong study and knowledge of the power of what's called agglomeration economics, which basically says that people want to be in the same place together, and that there are strong economic benefits of the co-location of people, and particularly where you've got ideas and creativity of actually bringing people together face to face rather than doing things remotely.
Senator Rice.
Oh. Have a mix of both. Now, look, I just wanted to continue. So, at the moment, in terms of the analysis of and the cost-benefit analysis, and taking into account your staff survey, what is your expectation of how many staff? What proportion of your staff do you expect will not relocate?
I can't answer that, Senator, because we don't have the final decision. We don't have the parameters by which everything will occur. I don't have final relocation policy, I honestly don't know. The survey that I was talking about, that was done over 12 months ago for a particular context, and I don't know what the results would be if that same survey was conducted today.
Can I ask then, in terms of the cost-benefit analysis, what presumptions are being made? You must be making some presumptions of what proportion of staff will relocate.
I think, as we've said before, Senator, we can't comment on what's in the cost-benefit analysis because it's part of the cabinet process.
So you can't even share with us the background, underlying presumptions or the criteria that are in the cost-benefit analysis?
No, Senator.
You said before you were working with UNE in terms of increasing their capacity to be delivering regulatory, educating regulatory scientists. What number of graduates do they have at the moment in the types of positions that you think might be able to perhaps have an add-on so that they would be producing graduates suitable to your needs?
I would have no idea what their graduate would be, what level of graduates they have. I'll just go back to the general comment that people who graduate with a science degree relevant to agricultural science require up to 5 years of additional training before they're a regulatory scientist. So even when I'm talking about the UNE putting regulatory science as part of their curriculum, which is something we're still talking about, it is only about providing very base level understanding. So it's not just a matter of then having graduates coming out of a university ready to go. It's more that we might have cut down, say, a year's worth of training. But in terms of their graduates, I would not have a clue.
Okay, so even if...
Senator Rice, I just interrupt for just a procedural thing to allow some of our witnesses to prepare themselves. What, Mr Quinlivan, what we will do at the end of this interaction, that we don't know when that'll be, but we're going to go directly then to Dairy Australia Limited, MLA, Australian Livestock Export and Landcare. On your schedule that will be 11, 12, 13, 14 in that order, in an effort to be able to deal with the officers, given they have flights at 6 p.m. So when we're completed, Senator Rice will complete her examination as and when. Senator Stirl and his colleagues have some questions, but then we will go directly to Dairy Australia. I apologise to Animal Health, Plant Health and Australian Fisheries Management for the moment, but we will then reorder affairs after we've hopefully been able to assist your officers make their plans. So, sorry for the interruption, Senator Rice.
So, and is the expectation we'd come back to APVMA again after Landcare? Is that...
No, we will not be moving off this until everyone's completed. Okay. However, it still stands as outcome one. Further on the schedule, but I got a sneaking suspicion that the whole schedule is going to come under some pressure. We have a meeting at 4:15 to organise further things, so okay, we'll wait till after that. Sorry, Senator Rice.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So just going back to the capacity of the local university to be able to provide you with suitable staff, you're saying they need 5 years training, so that even if you did ramp up their courses, you wouldn't have actually suitably trained staff for another 5 years beyond their graduation?
Not immediately. So as I mentioned before, we've got 100 regulatory scientists. Many of them have like 15, 20 years of experience. And so from the time you bring people through the junior ranks or graduate, going through doing very, very simple applications to start with, it takes about 5 years before we're confident letting them go with the more complicated applications. So yes, any sort of throughput, it would take a while to get a critical mass if we were only relying on graduates from a university.
So, I mean, how concerned... to me, hearing that and hearing that of your staff survey a year ago, you've got at least half of your scientists who are saying they really don't think they're going to relocate. And maybe you're going to get that down a bit, but you're looking in the order of, somewhere between... probably 30 to 70 of your scientists, putting a range, who are saying they're not going to shift from Canberra to Armidale. How are you going to fill that gap?
As I was explaining earlier, I am on the record, and I still am concerned about loss of access to regulatory scientists. But any programs or initiatives to try and mitigate that risk is part of the cabinet process. So I can't talk in any more detail.
So, if you weren't able to fill that gap, surely that would be impacting on the capacity of APVMA to do the work that you have to do, and have major flow-on implications for your clients.
If I were, and it's an if, I were unable to maintain access to regulatory scientists, then yes, it would impact on the business. But as I have already said, that any initiatives that might be taken to minimise that risk or mitigate that risk is part of the cabinet consideration.
Have you personally been consulted by the Minister over this move?
I have talked to the Minister about the move, yes.
And have you expressed those concerns to the Minister?
I'm not going to talk about a conversation that I had with the Minister, or Deputy Prime Minister.
Is an option maintaining a base in Canberra if there is, just insufficient ability for scientists to be willing to shift?
Senator Rice, can I just observe?
I'm about to finish.
Yeah, but we've been across quite a bit of this territory. I don't know whether you were present for it all, but I've
been present the whole time, and that particular question wasn't asked.
Okay, so I don't know. Well, Senator Sterle, I've got this. I just don't know that it's useful, given the state of our agenda today, to really go over territory again. But I acknowledge you're not far off finishing, so just you have the floor.
Sorry, would you mind repeating the question?
Just whether the option is being actively considered of maintaining a base in Canberra in the prospect that insufficient numbers of your regulatory scientists are willing to make the shift to Armidale.
Yeah,
Senator Rice, that's a matter of government policy, and if that matter was being considered, it would be the subject of the Cabinet submission, of which you're well aware we're not in a position to be able to divulge the information. So I think it's a little hard to ask Ms Hardy to be making comments on what she thinks might be government policy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you.